Good morning, friends. We are reading Officer Spence Makes No Sense. And Officer Spence just accused Mr. Klutz of robbery. There's also this missing peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And Mr. Klutz is eating a sandwich. So maybe Officer Spence is trying to put those two things together and say that Mr. Klutz stole AJ's peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which seems so silly. Like, why would Mrs. Suarez eat one of your PB&J sandwiches? I guess we'll see. If you're following along, we're on chapter number 3, The Peanut Butter and Jelly Bandit. Page number 16, if you have your own book. Officer Spence shoved Mr. Klutz against the wall and started searching through his pockets. "You can't arrest the principal of our school," said Andrea. "Oh, no," Officer Spence said. "Just watch me." "I didn't steal anything," said Mr. Klutz. "Oh, no," said Officer Spence, holding a spoon he found in Mr. Klutz's pocket. "What is this?" "It's, a spoon," Mr. Klutz said. For my yogurt." "Yogurt?" Officer Spence snorted. "Yeah, right. A spoon can be a deadly weapon, Klutz. You could gouge somebody's eyes out with one of these things. I'm going to have to confiscate this yogurt and do a DNA test on it." "What? Why?" "You have the right to remain silent, Klutz," Officer Spence said. "So shut up." Oh my gosh. "Now open that briefcase nice and slow and don't make any false moves." Mr. Klutz put his briefcase on the table and opened it slowly. Well, 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 what do we have here?" Officer Spence said as he held up those two sandwiches. Those are peanut butter and jelly sandwiches," Mr. Klutz said. "And I suppose you were going to eat a yogurt and 3 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch today, eh?" Officer Spence said. "That's right," Mr. Klutz said. "I love peanut butter and jelly." "You're the peanut butter and jelly bandit," Officer Spence yelled, pointing his finger at Mr. Klutz. "You steal food from hungry children. Is that the way you roll, Klutz?" "No," Mr. Klutz said. "My wife made me those sandwiches yesterday. She makes me my lunch every day." Officer Spence grabbed the front of Mr. Klutz's shirt and yelled in his face. "That's right. Blame it on your wife. You're pathetic, Klutz. I know how to handle punks like you." "But..." Officer Spence spun Mr. Klutz around and handcuffed his hands behind his back. "But I didn't do anything," Mr. Klutz said. "I'm the principal." "The criminal is always the one you least suspect." Look at him getting arrested. At that moment, our vice principal, Mrs. Jaffe, came running over. "What's the doggone problem here?" she said. "I heard someone yelling." "Freeze, dirtbag!" shouted Officer Spence. "You're under arrest." "What?" yelled Mrs. Jaffe as he handcuffed her. "Take 'em away, boys!" Officer Spence shouted. "The 2 of them make me sick." The guys with the bulletproof vests led Mr. Klutz and Mrs. Jaffe out of the vomitorium. We looked out the window and saw them getting into a police car. The sirens were screaming and the lights were flashing as the police cars drove away. "Wow," we all said again, with his mom upside down. I didn't like seeing Mr. Klutz and Mrs. Jaffe get arrested, but I had to admit it was pretty cool. A lot of weird things have happened at elementary school, but this was the first time that our principal and vice principal were taken away in handcuffs. I looked at Ryan, and Ryan looked at Michael, and Michael looked at Neil, and then we were all looking at each other. Nobody knew what to say, except Andrea, of course. "My name is Andrea, and I'm on the principal's advisory committee," she said to Officer Spence. "Aren't you maybe just overreacting a little bit? I mean, it's just a sandwich." Just a sandwich, Andrea, Officer Spence said, sneering. Oh, you don't know the first thing about being a criminal, how a criminal mind works. First, they steal a sandwich, and if they get away with it, they come back the next day and they take your whole lunch. And if you don't stop them right there, the next thing you know, they stole your whole refrigerator. You think Mr. Klutz is going to steal a refrigerator? Michael asked. That Officer Spence, he's a little, overwhelming, don't you think? I'm yelling at poor Andrea. She's like, what the heck is going on? Believe me, Officer Spence said, these dirtbags will steal anything that isn't nailed down. Well, how would you nail down a refrigerator then? Ryan asked. With really long nails, I told him. Nobody leaves the school until I get to the bottom of this, Officer Spence announced. The bottom of what? Asked Neil the nude kid. I'm going to do a full-scale investigation, Officer Spence explained. You should definitely try the nurse's office, I told him. Mrs. Cooney has a scale in there that you can use to investigate. Officer Spence stuck his face right in mine. You think you're pretty funny there, punk, he said. Well, okay, Mr. Funny. Just for that, you get to go first. Oh my gosh, so exciting. Okay, so if you're adding to your paper, I think you should add something to your plot box today. You should also be starting to think about what it is that the characters want / problem, because the problem presented itself very early in the story. Is this what the character wants, or is this a problem? It's a little different than the last couple of stories we've read, so we'll talk about it more later when we get further in the book. Have a good day.